So you know, we record these meetings so that we're able to refer back to them later and make awesome blog posts about them. Great. Well, thank you for joining us today on Bloom Network's Community Call. Today we're going to be talking about climate-related disaster mitigation and adaptation. Ooh, juicy topic. We had a lot of people sign up for this call, but it seems we've just got a small group here, and no doubt they will want to see the video later. So we will begin, as we usually do, with an acknowledgement to country. We would like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are calling in from today. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters, and cultures, and the depth of wisdom they hold. We also pay our respects to elders past and present across the lands of all the earth, and give our respect to the emerging leaders of the future. May our work with Bloom Network support them. May our understanding of the wisdom be embodied, and may we move forward together. After our acknowledgement to country, we do a short meditation together to bring us all into the same metaphorical room. This is one that I've written today for resilience. So if you just close your eyes, breathe deeply in and out, get yourself settled here in this place. Welcome to this place here together, a time to bring our minds, hearts, and intentions to big topics that work towards our resilience. We are much stronger than we realize. Breathe deeply and connect with your essence, the spirit of strength that resides inside you. Feel the strength within you. Feel your curiosity. Feel your kindness. Feel your courage. And feel your patience. They are there. They are all there within you. Feel these essences here and now within you, helping you build stronger resilience every day. These essences within you are also within all the people on this call today. Feel our resilience building together every day. Let's unite our growing resilience and take 5 deep breaths together. Breathe in 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. When you're ready, open your eyes and join us through your videos. Cool. Well, I would like to give a special welcome today to Kyle Leach from Sierra Streams and to Sister Pat Bergen of the Sisters of St. Joseph's, based in Springfield, Missouri. They're going to be talking to us today about the climate-related disaster mitigation and adaptation and the projects that they have been personally working on. So just to frame this discussion, I'm going to quickly frame it, I guess. Daily life for people in the cities and suburbs are becoming much more subject to the changes of climate, with wild weather making life tumultuous and things like food supply more of a gamble. A diverse and confusing range of symptoms and crises tend to focus public and individual attention in different directions, while the direct causes go unaddressed. Do we place trust in centralised government bodies and corporate services, or do we build greater resilience in households and communities? Our guests today have chosen the latter and have taken the initiative to work on their own landscapes to help restore local ecologies, which will help in a climate-related disaster. The call today will run with our guests speaking for 5 minutes each, followed by questions, and then we'll have more discussion at the end. So if you have questions, maybe type them into the chat box and we will get to them at the end of each speaker. All right, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Kyle Leach from Sierra Streams Institute. Kyle, are you ready?
Yes.
Cool. I'm
ready.
Cool. I will just read a quick bio for you, Kyle, if that's all right.
Sure.
Kyle is a California professional geologist with 25 years experience in environmental sciences and geology fields. For the past 17 years, he has been working in the Sierra Foothills region, investigating and cleaning up abandoned gold mines. 12 of these years were as a consultant on addressing mines on private property, and for the past 5 years, he's been working with Sierra Streams, managing grant-funded projects focused on the mines on public property. He knows a lot about the process of getting government grants to do good things, and today he's going to talk about post-catastrophic fire restoration in the Sierra Streams area. Welcome, Kyle. You're welcome to take the floor.
Okay, thank you. Well, first I'll talk a little bit about how we do abandoned mine cleanups, and then I'll kind of get into the main topic of tonight. In order to clean up abandoned mines, we go through a whole process where first we do a bunch of historical research, and we go out on the site and we map where there are abandoned mine features, and we look at the old past activities, and then we sample and we characterize, what the metals are there, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, cadmium in the soil, how soluble they are and how bioavailable they are. And then we design risk-based cleanups to most cost-effectively do the cleanup and protect human health and the environment. So on a typical site up here, what we'll do is we'll find out the worst of the worst waste, exceeding hazardous waste levels, and we'll excavate that and remove that material, usually to a landfill, hazardous waste landfill. And then the rest of the waste, we try to minimize that so we don't have to haul up too much, but with the rest of the waste, we'll excavate it and consolidate it and then bury it under clean soil. So then the last step is to restore the surface area by grading it so it's not very erodible, doing erosion control measures, soil building, and then revegetation. So with that as my background, I've also done work on doing more larger scale restoration of watersheds. And Sierra Streams Institute has biologists and geologists and hydrologists and things who do a lot of different kinds of things. But I've talked with one of our biologists who's kind of helped me with some of the soil stuff here. So our topic is restoring watersheds to prevent climate disasters and mitigating risks of disasters such as catastrophic wildfires, floods, and landslides, things like that, which kind of come into these mining sites quite a bit. So the first thing we do is stabilizing and restoring the mine tailings so that we can minimize the sediment loads into the waterways and minimize the heavy metals going in, improving wildlife habitat. And one of the problems with mine waste is it doesn't have a lot of biological components like microbes and organic matter, seeds, and that kind of thing. So what what we'll do is we'll add organic matter such as mulch. The easiest thing and the most traditional is to add mulch, and then it minimizes seeds and increases organic matter. Then we also like to add biosolids, which is a byproduct of wastewater treatment plants, and it's known to increase carbon uptake, stabilize the soil, and reduce the bioavailability of the metals. And then another thing that we're starting to try and use is called biochar, and that's a byproduct of cogeneration wood-fired power plants. It's a way of using wood waste to generate electricity more efficient way instead of just leaving the stuff to rot. And so that's a higher quality carbon sink, and it also binds metals such as mercury into the matrix of the biochar. And it's more expensive, so we try to use it in smaller, more critical areas. Another thing we do is inoculate the soil with soil microbes to increase the biological activity. So the way then we also hydroseed the soil to kind of stabilize it initially and get the seeds going. And hydroseed is a spray-on application of tackifier and mulch and seed and nutrients, and it kind of binds the soil in place until the seeds get going and things get established. And we'll also, to speed up the vegetation, we'll plant container plants of different kind of native species. And we want to keep native species going. Sometimes we have to do invasive species removal so that we have a more resilient, more natural environment. Another thing I wanted to say was, how can people get involved in this kind of work? Zero Streams is a nonprofit in Nevada City, California, and we address watershed conservation, environmental education, and human environmental health. We're a local community organization, and we use what's called citizen science, or sometimes we don't want to use the word citizen, so they say community-based science. And so we have volunteers who come and help us collect data such as water quality monitoring, sampling, field observations and measurements. And then we have volunteer events doing things like watershed cleanups and invasive plant removal and planting of native plants. Like I'll have volunteers come help me plant my sites. Volunteers also do other functions such as fundraising, laboratory research, like we do sampling of what's called macroinvertebrates, or the bug larvae that live in the streams, and then we collect them and then look at them under microscopes and classify them to see, that it tells you the health of the streams. So if you want to get involved, there's local watershed groups everywhere, or you can start one yourself, and they're always looking for volunteers. That's what I have. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to talk more about anything.
Wow, what a download, Kyle. It's amazing.
Well,
I've got a question.
There's a lot going on. I could talk for hours, But, yeah, that's kind of a streamlined version.
Nick, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just wonder if anyone has any questions, or maybe you want to hear more about any of those topics.
So you said you do fire mitigation and like restoration locally in different watersheds. Do you guys operate based off of grants, or you said you're a nonprofit, so do you collaborate with other organizations, or do you have like a fiscal sponsor? How exactly do you
most of our projects are from grants. The mine waste cleanups that I do are large scale grants because it's usually really expensive, and we get a lot of grants from the US EPA, the Brownfields Cleanup Program. A lot of the fire mitigation projects are more smaller grants from local organizations and philanthropy organizations. We kind of get all different kinds of grants. We do get some donations, and we use a lot of volunteers to do a lot of the work. When I'm dealing with hazardous waste, I can't really have volunteers because you have to be trained to handle hazardous waste and take precautions. But once the site's cleaned up, I can use volunteers for planting things and stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, on our fire mitigations, we have some grants where we come in after a fire is gone on, and which we've had quite a few in California lately. And what we'll do is we'll go in there and we'll look at where there's bare soil. That a lot of times these fires are so hot that they kill off everything in the soil. And so we'll spread out mulch and get things growing like I was talking about earlier. Sometimes, planting different things. And you kind of have to get key areas where erosion is more prone and along the stream banks and things like that. And kind of start with kind of islands of vegetation and let them go from there. So you have a diverse, ecosystem. Any other questions?
Any questions from the floor there? I'm keen to know how you work with your volunteers, Kyle, and how do you keep them engaged with what you're doing? Because it must be a long-term project, right? So how do you keep them excited during that time?
Well, we have a volunteer coordinator, and we do a lot of events. Like actually tomorrow, I think we have a volunteer appreciation day where we're going to have a lunch for people where the volunteers come in, and we have people that do things like monthly monitoring of streams where they get to they usually have a partner and they come in and get all their equipment and stuff, and they go out and they have a site along the stream where they'll do their monitoring, and they'll go out there and bring the data back every year. And we also we like to keep people informed of what their data is actually doing, and so they feel like they're doing something that's real and have some context with everything else. We also have things like invasive species removal parties where people go out and pull things like Scotch broom is one of a very fire prone plant that likes to grow here, and it's invasive and grows fast. But people go out and do things together. We get people to go out in groups and build camaraderie with each other, and I think people really like that. So that's kind of how we do it.
Anyone else have any questions for Kyle?
When you are working on catastrophic fire restoration, is it often, I know some of the people you work with at Sierra Streams focus on that more closely. Do they and you all end up collaborating with multiple agencies? Like, for example, near Grass Valley, where we both lived together for a while, like those huge fires that came through, are all the agencies collaborating together to work on them and like pooling resources?
I don't know a lot about the other agencies. We do work with the county and the landowners, mainly. Like when we get a grant to go into an area that's had a fire, and we'll talk with the county and the city of Nevada City where there's a fire, and people come in and we'll work with the people that are there on the ground. But there's not a lot of, I don't know that much of collaboration really on that kind of thing. I know, there are other organizations, like there's the Fire Safe Council and a fair amount of others. I can email you a list of different organizations that get involved, but I'm not really the one who organizes all that. They call me in when there's a mine in the area that burned, and I'll go in and look at that and figure out ways to keep mine waste from eroding into the creek and that kind of thing. So that's sort of my role in that. Sure.
Cool. I've got one more question, Kyle. This is a question that we're going to be asking all our speakers this year, because we are wanting to really hone the messages that go out to the mainstream media around regenerative cultures. So thinking about your work, what about your work what message would you want mainstream media to pick up and shout out loud and clear to help people understand what you do and the importance of what you do?
Well, I would say that protecting the environment and protecting people from environmental contaminants is a really important thing. We're doing projects with human health where we're studying the incidence of breast cancer in our area and how that's related to people's potential exposure to mine waste. So linking the environment with actual impacts to people, and then also cleaning up watersheds and restoring watersheds to their natural function conserves water, and it sequesters carbon. When you have a healthy forest, it's holding more carbon, which can helps with the climate crisis, and the water crisis that we have in California. We're going from a flood into a drought. It looks like so we're always looking at those kinds of things.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. That's great. Okay, our second guest is Sister Pat Bergen. Sister Pat Bergen is one of our sisters at the St. Joseph's in Springfield, Missouri. Sister Pat has been involved with the Mirabeau Water Garden since its inception, which started post-Hurricane Katrina. This project has transformed a New Orleans Catholic convent that was badly damaged in the hurricane into a 25-acre urban wetland to help absorb the floodwaters. They're working towards having the capacity to absorb 10 million gallons of stormwater running off the surrounding neighborhood, which will still trickle through the city's old drainage system, but very slowly, and make those deluges that come through the city less overwhelmed. Last year, the Mirabeau Water Garden was a showcase project in Resilient New Orleans, which is the city's resilience strategy. Welcome, Pat Bergen, or Sister Pat Bergen, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You are ready to roll.
Okay. First of all, I'll just say that I'm from the Congregation of St. Joseph, and I live in LaGrange, Illinois, and our office is in Cleveland, Ohio. But
I got all that wrong, didn't I?
That's okay. I just wanted you to know where we're located. And our sisters are, of course, in New Orleans, and were in New Orleans for a long time, or a very long time, before Katrina. But Katrina actually damaged our building, but it was the flood after Katrina that really damaged our building. And so
you ready to go, man?
It took $250,000 to get the water out of the building. Afterwards, a storm came through and struck the roof with lightning. I think I'm hearing other voices.
Yes, I've just muted that person. You're good.
Okay, good. And so struck lightning to the roof, and then the Army Corps of Engineers helped us to get that fire out by taking the water out of the canal, which we had just put back in the canal, and actually, got the fire out with that water. But then the building was devastated, and so it could not be repaired. And so when that happened, when we took down the building, deconstructed it, we knew we could do quite a bit with that land, that we could probably get developers in to build homes, but we knew that that land was going to flood all over again with another hurricane. So we didn't want anybody to have a home there. So we began praying for some idea that would help us to have the land serve the people of New Orleans like our sisters had done when they lived there. And it was after years of holding the land, which we believe is sacred because people have prayed on that land for years, and bringing out the sacredness that was inherent in the land. An architect found us. David Wagner, and he came to us with a dream of making this 25-acre plot of land into a water garden. And we couldn't believe it because it was an answer to our prayer. This would help us to have that land serve the people and protect them as our sisters had always tried to do. And so this water garden will take the water in through pipes into this great big plot of land and filter the water that comes in off the streets and off the neighboring landscapes. And so that when the water gets halfway down the land, that water will be clean enough to have a swimming pool. We will not have a swimming pool there, but it would be clean enough to have a swimming pool. And then it goes further down the land, and the back of the property is sand. So it's filtered through that sand and comes back around. And when the levees have taken down enough water, now in New Orleans, the levees can only take down 2 inches per hour. So that was part of the problem during Katrina. The levees broke. So we would hold the water until the levees have taken down enough water that we can gently release the water back into the canals to be handled by the levee. When this water is not being held on this property, it will be a garden, a playland. It'll have playing fields on it, a live oak garden. It will also have buildings on it, where we hope one of the colleges down in New Orleans will partner with us to run educational classes on how this water garden can be replicated in urban centers throughout the world. We know that if this would have been already up when Sandy happened in the Northeast, New Jersey and New York, that area would not have been as devastated. We know that if this had been up and replicated in Houston a few years ago, that area would not have been devastated. Actually, this water garden will keep the surrounding radius of 3,780 acres in all directions from flooding. It will minimize the flooding in over 6,000 acres of radius surrounding the property, and up to 9,000 acres in all direction will experience a diminishment, a slight, from 6,000 to 9,000 will experience a diminished amount of flooding. So it holds great potential for the city of New Orleans to help alleviate the flooding that happens with these big storms. So we're pretty excited about it. And actually, when this design was completed, the federal government was running a contest for designs to be submitted for water resiliency in urban areas. And so we recommended to the mayor of New Orleans, at that time it was a different mayor than they have right now, and to see if he wanted to submit this to the federal government. And he kind of, I think he thought we were a little bit crazy. But we did submit it. And as a result, I was able, it won the prize, and I was able to hand Mayor Landrieu a check for $143 million for water resiliency in New Orleans, and the newly elected Governor Bell Edwards a check for $93 million for water resiliency in Louisiana. Now, we could not use a cent of that. That was for the larger city of New Orleans and the larger state of Louisiana. But that's how good this design is. So I was pretty excited about that. Besides, I've never held a check that was so big in my life.
When did that happen, Sister Pat?
That happened in, I want to say 2016.
And was that based on just the design, or had you actually started doing some work then?
No, it was just the design. Actually, there has not been a groundbreaking yet. We also were able to get a $10 million, grant from FEMA for our work on this site. So it's already paid for. And we've been trying to get the city to move on it. But they did send out bids. So it looks like we'll be having a groundbreaking as soon as they finish, choosing the companies who will do the work. Wagner and Ball is the architect that will do the work. So they're looking for construction people at the present moment. And in designing this, it was kind of exciting because David Wagner works with engineers from the Netherlands and Shanghai, and they know how to manage water. So I was involved in working with these big engineers, just kind of as a sideline activity. Really, David Wagner was doing most of the work, but it was very interesting to see how these engineers from all over the world were coming forward to help New Orleans. And we were the beneficiaries of their excellence with water in making up this design.
Wow, that is like so inspiring.
It is. It's great.
Shall we see if there's any questions, Pat? Are there any questions from the floor there? Oh yeah, Chris, off you go.
Hey, yeah, I was curious, how much did that initial development in New Orleans cost? How much did it cost to build that first garden?
Well, number one, we haven't built it yet, We're about ready to break ground. So it's not built yet. The first stage, the building of the design without the educational piece is $10 million.
Which you have a grant for already.
Which we got a grant for, yes.
25.
And then I'm also just curious, do you have any form of the designs online? I'm trying to imagine it. And I don't know.
Yeah, there were some designs. Actually, yeah. I'm pretty sure that Wagner and Ball has designs of it online. We did have designs of it online, and then there was no movement, so it was not. We took it down.
I did find a fact sheet from the City of New Orleans from fall 2019, so that's pretty recent.
Okay, good.
So
does it have the design there?
Yes, it's got some sketches.
Great.
Yeah. So I've just dropped that into the chat, Christopher. Also, there's this really good article that you might want to read a bit more about, which I'll also drop in the chat, from thehill.com.
Yes.
One second. Sorry, Hannah, you need to change your chat to send to everyone, not just
whoops. Magenta's getting all my messages.
Sorry, I'm helping on the back end a little bit.
Here we go.
Pat, I'd love to ask another question because I was a little confused. Sure. I had thought maybe you guys had built that first one and now you're trying to build a second one.
No.
Yeah, no, now I understand. So what phase, where are you exactly at the moment with the building of this?
Right now, the city just sent out bids for contractors. So there's no ground broken yet. The design is complete, but the ground has not been broken to start building it yet.
And what neighborhood is it in too?
Gentilly, the Gentilly neighborhood.
Which ward is that in?
It's on Mirabeau Avenue,
Okay.
near City Park.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Do you know the area, Christopher?
Ish. I spent some time in New Orleans, so.
Lucky you. I don't have a very long bucket list, but New Orleans is at the top of it. Do we have some more questions for Sister Pat?
I'm curious if there is anything we can do to help more people know about this design and this method for buffering storm surges. I mean, would it be helpful if with Bloom Network, you know, we let people know about that from cities that we know are going to face sea level rise and increasing water related disasters on coasts? Could you use some communication support on?
Oh, sure. Very much so. Very much so, because as I said before, if this had been replicated in a plot of empty land up in the Northeast, New York and New Jersey would not have suffered like they did with the storm called Sandy, and the same thing in Houston. So this can be replicated any place in an urban area where there's a plot of ground. It could have been replicated in City Park in New Orleans. Because the benefit of this is when it's not a storm, these are playing fields and beautiful park. And playing fields can flood, like a soccer field could flood without destroying it. So it can be a storm watershed, and then it can be a play, and then drain the water, and you've got a beautiful park again. So it is replicable, and it would help them in heavily populated areas. So that would be great, especially when we see some activity down there. Start talking about what's being built. Right now, because it's been dormant for so long, all the excitement that was present in the beginning has kind of waned.
That kind of touches on a question I have for you. My name is Emma Weissman, everybody. Hi, thank you so much for telling us about this. It's fascinating, and I love to hear about wetlands coming back into the, it's a beautiful story. I'm curious about what the local community engagement has been like, how you've managed to keep the local community informed as through the long process of getting a huge project like this going, and what the community buy-in has been like for you.
Well, in the beginning, we had a lot of community engagement with the neighborhoods around. Remember, the neighborhoods around were pretty devastated.
Course,
so there weren't people around to begin with. And then as their homes got repaired, and as Barnes and Noble built a whole new neighborhood in that area, which are lovely homes. So we engaged all of those people about what would be happening, because they were all interested. They thought we would be selling the land and there would be houses put there. And so, no, we aren't doing that. And so when we had all kinds of neighborhood meetings, outside meetings on the property, door-to-door meetings, telling them what our plan was, showing them the design, actually invited the neighbors to a great big sit-down party there when we invited the mayor and the governor to receive their checks as a result of the design. So neighbors got pretty excited about it when they saw all that kind of thing happening. And now when we start to break ground, we'll have more neighborhood meetings again to update the folks about why these big trucks are there and all that kind of thing, and explain to them with the design so they can actually see it.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have a question from Nick in the chat. He asked, how long does the process take with FEMA?
Long. Took long. Because, you know, they have to know every phase of the design, and you have to send in phase 1, and then you wait for months to get an answer on it. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, you're working on phase 2. And so every step along the way, you send to them, then they come and they do measurements, and their measurements don't agree with your measurements. And so it was very, very long.
Did you find that it was different between different administrations? Because it's been quite some time since Katrina, and we've seen very drastic changes in the philosophy at FEMA. So I was wondering, is the current climate beneficial to projects like this, or
that's a great question, because we were working with the city under Mayor Landrieu, and all of the subgroups that had personnel there with Mayor Landrieu. And when the new mayor was elected, of course, the heads of many of the departments left. So these are all new people. So the people that we were working with are no longer there. So their interest was not sparked. So it was trying to engage with those folks, trying to get them to answer the phone, trying to get a meeting set up with them so we could engage with them. So that's taken a lot of time. And you know, when there's a new administration, there are lots of issues in the city. And every administration names what's most important to them that needs to be addressed first. So that happens everywhere. That happens all the time. So unfortunately, this did not get addressed first. So it could have actually helped when the storm came through last year and there was flooding in New Orleans. If this would have been up and running, it would have been a help to the city. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's really helpful. I imagine something like this, you're dealing not just with local, but also with state and federal gatekeepers and funders and that kind of thing. And each one of those kind of creates more complexity.
And every time there's a change of a head of a department or the agency in the department that you're working with, it takes longer.
Do you have any advice for people that would be trying to navigate that process as to whether to focus local or to focus on like a particularly engaged person at the federal level? Like what's been the thing that really brought this home as a project so that you were able to get it funded?
Well, we did get Mayor Landrieu's buy-in for it. So that was important, because if we had not, even if we would have gotten federal agents to agree with us, we had to get the local buy-in in order to get the federal buy-in. So what would be my advice? Work with people who have relationships at all those levels. I don't even know how you would do it without relationships. And really, David Wagner was working with us, and he had relationships in the city, relationships in the federal government, relationships with those engineers from around the world. So Relationships are key to everything, aren't they? I mean, good, strong, honest relationships are the key to everything.
Great quote that I can use later, Sister Pat.
Hey, Pat, I had one last question for you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if local volunteers are useful to your project at all. I know you guys are on the bid and probably don't have a time for breaking ground, but we have a local community in New Orleans, and I would love to know how to connect them with your project if that was something that was useful.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you would want to email me or let me know what the organization is somehow.
Yeah, I can send you an email if that's the best way to connect.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I can, when I'm talking with David Wagner next time, I can be asking him. At this point, I don't think there's a need for volunteers at this point while we're waiting for the bids to come through. But I could envision that, I don't exactly know what your group does, but we might talk together, and I can see that. Does your group do education things? What does it do?
Yeah, we're part of the Burning Man organization, and so we have lots of artists and builders and makers and teachers, and kind of it's a very wide swath of people. Okay. And particularly, we work with a group that does a lot of social impact and community work inside of that.
Wonderful! Oh my gosh! Yeah, yeah. Send me. Sure, that's good.
It's a great match, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. Well, I don't know if you can put your email in the chat, or maybe I can get it.
Okay.
From the call, but I'd love to connect you with our local community leaders.
I would love to do that. So let's see. Is there a way he can get it from the call, or I have to figure out how to do the chat thing? That's testing me.
You can either type it into the chat.
Okay, I type it right here. I see.
And are you happy, Pat, with other people to get in contact with you as well, since your email address is there?
Okay, so I just typed this on right now, and I'm not sure how to send it.
Just press enter.
Oh, okay, great.
There we go.
Okay, good.
That's amazing. Thank you, Pat. I'll ask you the same question that I asked Kyle. What in your message would you like the mainstream media to pick up and shout loud and clear to help people understand what you do and the importance of what you do?
Okay. What I do is our mission for our congregation is that all may be one. So we are trying to live out of a consciousness of oneness with everything, which includes all creation. And so what I would say is whatever you can do to support the thriving of even one creature helps the whole. Keep your eyes open, your ears open, your mind open, and let yourself be inspired to take as many steps as possible for the healing and the thriving of creation, so that all together we will have a future full of hope.
Mm. That is truly beautiful. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
We have a few more minutes to go into open discussion if we would like to. My city that I live in, very small city at the top of New Zealand, has just been declared a national drought emergency. So we're definitely feeling those extra effects with the changes that are happening, and then when the rain comes, we will probably have serious flooding. So I'm definitely inspired to talk with more people who live locally around how we're going to mitigate this and start more wetlands in our city. I think that will be a good thing.
Mhm.
It's like 100% humidity here today, so very,
wow.
very hot. Well, it's probably more around 90%, but it's like, whew. Hasn't rained for 2 months. Very unusual for my town.
I wanted to mention one project too, but did you want some responses to that first, Hannah?
No, no. Fine.
I'm trying to find the link here. There's a woman that we connected with through the course of planning this call who works for Lush Cosmetics, and they do a regenerative enterprise prize for projects doing local regenerative. So it's often agriculture related. I think sometimes it's maybe even cosmetics ingredients related, but I'm not sure. But they have like a robust community resilience regenerative kind of mandate, and they're starting to collaborate with other organizations that do similar support stuff. But she sent us a link to a kind of collective of all people working on all kinds of projects, mostly in South America and Africa. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat too, in case you'd like to explore that, because it's more inspiring kind of preventative landscape and agriculture and economically beneficial stuff that's going on that could be inspiration for everybody.
Thank you, Magenta. Yeah, I was looking at this website earlier today. It's pretty interesting. Is there anything else that anyone would like to discuss this month on the Bloom Community Call?
Hi, this is Nick at the Emerald Village. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing these two really fascinating projects. They're both really near and dear to my heart. I spent 11 months in Mississippi after Katrina, working with Catholic Charities and All Hands Disaster Response, as well as Christopher Breedlove's organization, BWB. And I currently live at a village community in Southern California that's actually a high fire risk with some riparian wetlands that are badly in need of remediation. And we're actually actively pursuing some grants to be able to remove all the eucalyptus and tree of heaven and do some riparian restoration as well as fire mitigation. So I might be connecting with Kyle afterwards around that. And we also have a chapter, a local chapter of BWB. And yeah, we're interested in helping support these kind of efforts at the international and national level, but also doing local implementations. And just gotta say, I'm really inspired by everything that you guys are doing and really appreciate you taking the time to share.
Thank you, Nick, and we're sure we can share some of the work that you're doing as well through the Bloom Network as well, as you move along in your work. Okay, well, it's been an hour since we started the call. If anyone, this is your last chance to throw something onto the table. Otherwise, we will close things up for the day.
I'll just echo the thanks to Pat and Kyle for calling in and sharing. I don't think we can hear you, Pat. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I thought I did. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I will echo the thanks that you showed up and asked some questions and volunteered to be of help. What great people you are, all of you, to give your time and your talent to this that actually concerns me very, very much. And I care a lot that you're suffering drought and enormous heat, that we've really got to put an all-out effort to do something as much as we possibly can.
Mm. Yes, I went to one of our local waterfalls last week and it was dry.
Oh.
No water in that particular waterfall. That was scary. And the you know, walking through the bush, there was no sound of the stream that normally trickles through there. Very eerie. Sorry, Facebook is bad. Yeah, very, very weird. It's definitely a wake-up call to me. Kyle, thank you so much for being on and sharing your expertise with us. Definitely we'll keep tabs on what you are doing over there in Sierra Streams. And thank you, Pat, for your amazing enthusiasm and gentle heart. It's really wonderful to meet you, and I definitely would like to continue this conversation as we go through this journey together. I'm going to close this time with a Māori prayer that talks about our connection to Papatūānuku, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and how the marvels of her nature gives us goosebumps. Mai ranganui, tae noa ki Papatūānuku, ki te whitite rā, ki runga aia, whakarongo, ki ngā manu I te oro, ki te hau e pupu ana, ka mau te wehi, ki te hau e pupu ana, ka mau te wehi. Have an excellent month. And we will see you maybe next month on our call about regenerative fashion, taking on the fashion industry and turning our clothing choices into good ones. All right, thank you everyone, and have a good month.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Much love, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. Blessings.
Blessings.